Here's another important tip from the Personal Defense Network. We're going to take a little bit closer look at that core principle: clamp, orient, ram, retract. So I've got the long arm in my shoulder and I'm moving down a hallway. I'm approaching an area and all of a sudden a threat comes out from either side, let's say from my right here, and grabs a hold of the muzzle of my carbine. I'm going to execute, number one, the clamp. I'm going to pull that carbine deep underneath my strong side arm. I'm basically retracting that carbine and shortening it by half. Some key points to the clamp part of this process is that, number one, I need to bring the rear side of the carbine back to at least my pec. Number two, I want to make sure that my strong side elbow is actually clamping down on the buttstock of the carbine. If my elbow's up, then it can move around, and if my aggressor has control of the muzzle, they can really, throw me around with it. So by clamping down this elbow, I have a good secure grip on that carbine. And again, I've brought the long gun in close, tight to the core of my body, where I'm strong, where I work every day with my hands. This is a very stable, secure position. I can also, if need be, if my aggressor has grasped the muzzle and now they're realizing that they're not getting anywhere and they decide to start striking me, I can, if I've grasped this under my arm, if I've clamped this tight underneath my strong side arm, I can take this hand off the forend long enough to fend off strikes. The second part of CORR is orient. So if my threat has come from the right, they've grabbed my muzzle and we've got a tug of war going on, I've clamped it under my arm, I've got a few seconds of security here. Now I'm going to orient the muzzle center line of my threat. Now this is important because if the threat justifies lethal force, I can work my safety selector and I can utilize lethal force and shoot them off the carbine. If they don't warrant lethal force, now I'm going to utilize some other combative techniques. Those might be striking with the carbine. And the first part of that is the first R, and that's ram. I'm going to step violently towards my aggressor, ramming the muzzle into the center line of their body. Now, depending upon the height of my threat, I might hit them in the sternum, I might hit them in the stomach, I might hit them in the chest plate. And that can be a very, very violent action. But what's important is that I didn't push out like this with the carbine to try to strike them with it. Because if my adversary is as big as or bigger than me and I extend my arms, now we get into this tug of war. So the ram part's very, very important in the sense that I step forward and I ram the muzzle into them. Hopefully that'll loosen them up a little bit, loosen up their grip, distract them long enough to where now once I've rammed them, with my rear foot I take a violent step back and retract and pull the carbine away from their hands. There's some key points about the carbine or the long arm that we're looking at, like the front sight. If someone has my forend grasp, this front sight's very sharp. The muzzle brakes, different parts of the muzzle, very sharp. So we're hoping, it's not a definite, but we're hoping that those sharp parts will aid us in this retention process. In review, with the carbine mounted, number one, I'm going to clamp it underneath my strong side arm, down tight, orient the muzzle on my threat, center line of my threat, ram forward with an aggressive step, retract backwards. Now, at this point, if they've let go of the carbine, I can remount the carbine and utilize lethal force if it's justified. If you found this video helpful, make sure to post a comment at thepersonaldefensenetwork.com.